As you all know by now, there was a horrible attack in France, and my condolences go out to all the people who have lost friends or family. This video is dedicated to them. Given these recent happenings, and I don't mean just ISIS, but also the very people who ought to stand up against ISIS, I would like to challenge especially the US Americans among you to stand up for freedom of speech by suffering freedom of speech. I will throw some hopefully very offensive stuff at you, and I challenge you to try to endure it without getting offended. I want to do this because freedom of speech is our most valuable ally against terror and fascism, and it's the only thing oppressors hate the most. If you don't feel like listening to offensive material, please pause the video now and leave. But if you go on, know that I hold you all to very high standards, and I expect you to ace this challenge. Needless to say that this video is not meant to share a held opinion, but solely to hold up a mirror and to show us whether or not we really manage to live up to the freedoms we take for granted. There are a bunch of people who feel totally offended if you say the N word, which is stupid because N is not a word. It's a letter. It took me quite a while to figure out that N-word relates to nigger, because it's the same name of a country or at worst a river. And it just doesn't make any sense to me how you can be offended by the name of a bloody river. The first time I heard nigger was in middle school. You know, all little pasty white Soviet kids in a little pasty white Soviet school in a little pasty white Soviet town. And one Greek. The word got promoted by some weird song that suddenly popped up in the radio one day. But instead of being sung, it was all just spoken in some sloppy English. They called it rape or rap or something. Anyway, that song had every second word censored out, and every second word of the words that you could actually hear was nigger. Given the uniqueness of this song, the day after, every boy called every other boy nigger, and every other girl niggerovska. We all felt very cool about it. However, we wondered a bit why our English teacher nearly fainted that day and was even more pasty white than usual. Eventually, some guy told us that nigger is extremely offensive because it's a derogatory term and means black people who speak English. I know that because we asked a black person who didn't speak English, and he scratched confused his head. Although, who knows, maybe he had just an itching skull. We also found out that apparently only niggers use nigger, because everyone else uses black people, including black people who aren't niggers. Oh, and except some sensitive university tyrants. They use Afro-American, because for some reason, if you're born in America but are black, you're just half American. Kind of like a fifth-generation American with origins from the North Pole is just Apollo-American. This word, nigger, can only be used by nigger or black people who don't use the word anyway, because else people get offended. These nigger people are also the only ones who can call pasty white people like me cracker. Now, it's supposed to be derogatory, but I don't really understand why. What can be derogatory about a piece of dry bread? I mean, when my grandfather told me that starving people always talk about the bread, I didn't know that he meant it that literally. It would, however, explain how ginger got their names. Probably the original nickname for them was gingerbread, but since Americans are lazy, they dropped bread and just kept ginger. The funniest part is that many Christians are black, and for many Christians, especially Catholics, Jesus is a cracker. But if nigger really demean Jesus by calling him a cracker, doesn't that give the expression black mass a completely new perspective? Okay, so how far did you come before losing your temper? Remember that freedom of speech also means freedom of listening and hearing. It also implies hearing things you find disagreeable or even disgusting. Only by allowing bad ideas to be spoken, you allow people to challenge these ideas. Thank you very much for participating. Vive la France et vive la liberté!